And we're live. Scuba Obsessed, the weekly podcast. We talk about all things scuba diving, from cool new gear to places to dive and scuba news. Scuba Obsessed 528 was recorded live March 17th, 2022. Welcome back to Scuba Obsessed. I'm Darren Gilson, coming to you from the southwest side of the great state of Michigan, where I'm not even sure what month it is. Darn daylight savings time. Joining me this week, we have Mack, the dive mentor. How you doing today, Mack?
I'm doing very well, and I enjoyed the mild temperatures today and yesterday.
Yeah, it was kind of nice. I can get used to this. Not too cold, and in fact, it's been 2 days in a row. I have not worn my coat. I had the coat in the truck, but I did not wear the coat. So I guess that's kind of. I remember as a kid, the March. That was always what you tried to do. Or what you ended up doing is leaving the coat at school. Then the next morning it would be 30 degrees and it was cold out to the bus.
Some kids get off the bus, come on out by the house like they normally do. That was last week when we had a little snow on the ground.
Yeah.
So one kid's got the coat over his shoulder, and the other one here has got short sleeves on and no coat at all. Walking, sidewalks are clear. But you got a dusting of snow around, so it still had to be chilly.
Yeah.
Those hale and hardy days.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody, for hanging in with us and tuning in. Apologize for the week off, but it's that time of year where we'll be just about every other week for a while, hopefully, if things go well. Last week was the robotics event in St. Joe, Michigan. So I know better than to try and think I'm going to have the opportunity to record, because it's just not going to happen. So, and that went pretty well. The team ended up winning, so congratulations to the team. And before the show, we were talking about whether I was expecting it or not, and I definitely was not expecting it. This was a rough year for us. We're a little green. We got potential, which that kind of proved out, but we're halfway there. We got one more event will be coming up next week. That'll be in Lansing area. And then if they do well enough, we'll have states. And then Worlds is going to be really tough because they've really reduced the size of Worlds. So it's going to be difficult to get in there. Well,
you might just hit it right again this year and go.
Yeah, you never know. Hey, and then I'd like to thank everybody who's in the chat room. We have Eric rolling in there. When we miss weeks like that, it takes a while for people to see that we're back. So let's go ahead and jump right on into the news. First article we have up here. Let me get the right screen showing. This one was from News Channel 19 WXOW. I'm not familiar with that. That's I'm assuming somewhere in Michigan?
That's a northern one, as I recollect.
Yeah. Shipwreck Treasures of the Great Lakes. And we'll get that video playing in the background here. But it says 2 major shipwreck discoveries have sparked more interest in the massive relics claimed by Time. One of those shipwrecks was discovered in Lake Superior. Wow, look at that photo. Who took that? That is Cal Cothrade? That is an amazing shot.
Isn't that great? The visibility is fantastic.
Fantastic visibility and just a really nice angle. Have divers in the photo for those who are listening to the podcast. 2 divers on a wooden vessel. You've got masts down on the side. You got an anchor there at the bow. Hanging up there. That landed.
That's at least 70-foot visibility, as I remember.
Yeah, that's sitting
right there,
flat in the bottom. Yeah. Yeah, look at that. That's a beautiful shot. On Thursday, March 10th, and that's in the past by the time you hear it, La Crosse Public Library is hosting the Shipwreck Treasures of the Great Lakes via Zoom. He provides a backstory of the wreck and shows different images of the pieces of history. So, but that is a great photo.
Yeah.
It's going to be worth...
breathers.
And this is on the shipwrecks.niagaradivers.com website, and I think that's the same... that's at Cal Cothrade again. I'm pronouncing his name right.
He did some shows.
Mm-hmm.
He did some shows, and there's quite a few articles on him that week showing what he's done. A lot of the shipwrecks he's been on. Very nice pictures.
Yeah. This is a rendering that we're showing on the screen now. W.C. Kimball. That looks like a cover slide for his presentation. It looks like he's doing some stuff with Ross Richardson. It's interesting how many of those exist in the state. With a hull full of potatoes, the W.C. Kimball sank near Manitoba Islands in Lake Michigan in 1891. She was found by happenstance in 2018. This article goes in to talk about how long the Great Lakes has been sailed upon, 17th century. So 400 years, they estimate 6,000 vessels and 30,000 lives. Don't know about the lives, but I think that's a little bit light on the vessels.
Depending on who you
Most
listen
recent
to.
maritime, right?
I was going to say, depending on who you listen to and what historian, that number can be anywhere from 7,000 to 15,000. Now, of course, in that, they're counting a lot of the Indian rafts, the Indian boats back in the day. And some of those transport craft were over 80 foot long.
Yeah.
And some of those were even on the St. Joe River, coming in from South Bend area through Niagara.
Yeah.
It's a rather large canoe.
Yes. So the most recent maritime tragedy was 44 years ago when the Edmund Fitzgerald found itself caught in a storm, sinking Lake Superior, November 10th, 1975. 1975, killing a crew of 29. The schooner that was most recently found in the northern Lake Michigan provides closure to a 127-year-old mystery that happened and a 93-year-old man who lost his great uncle when the vessel sank. On September 13th, 2018, I was out with my cousins on Lake Michigan boating to North Manitoba Island, says Ross Richardson, who is a shipwreck hunter known for his discovery of the Westmoreland in 2010. I turned on my side scan sonar to show them how it worked, and within a couple minutes, we ran over an interesting target. After reviewing the images, Richardson said he knew he stumbled upon something sailing vessel. Based on the knowledge and research, he knew it was going to be, there was a few missing in the area. It came 90 feet off the bottom, which is extremely unusual for a shipwreck, added Richardson. A few weeks later, knowing he was running out of quality weather days with fall coming, he assembled a crew and went back to the wreck site to dive it. The wreck is settled in 300 foot deep, which is well beyond my range to dive. He contacted technical diver Steve Wimmer II, who was based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Whatever it was, I was going to be the first one to see it, said Wimmer, who's been diving Great Lakes since 2005. Wimmer, as he descended, said he could see the bow of the ship come in view. Once he reached the bottom, he was stunned by what was lying in the silt before him. It was a perfectly intact schooner. Both masts were fully upright. All the rigging in the mast was there. The bowsprit was there. The hatches were still battened down. The cabin was fully intact with the wheel. You could raise it, drain it, and sail it away today. As soon as Wimmer surfaced, he reported to Richardson what he saw. Steve felt the schooner was approximately 70 feet long, said Richardson. We had other pieces of the puzzle to help us to lead to identification. Fall would eventually give way to winter, preventing any more trips to the wreck site for the remainder of 2018. His next shot at diving the wreck again would likely be in the spring of 2019. but that didn't prevent him from diving to something else, extensive research. I thought the wreck might be the Emily. It fit the size and shape and disappeared in Lake Michigan in 1857. The Emily was a 65-foot two-mast schooner that was built in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In 1853, it's believed the vessel foundered in a severe gale with a crew of 6 aboard. All hands were lost. In late winter, I invited a friend over and showed him the picture of the schooner site. He spotted something. He said the vessel had an iron rope on it. The iron rope wasn't used on Great Lakes shipwrecks until after the Civil War. So that eliminated it from being the wreck of the Emily because this unknown wreck had to sink post 1865. So he's back to square one. He spent the winter and early spring months of 2019 scouting comprehensive database of schooners, specifically ones where they presumed known to be around the Manitoba Islands. I read through over 6,000 records. Of the 6,000, I was able to identify about a dozen that matched, but one of them really stood out, a schooner that seemingly disappeared off Point Bestie, which is 15 miles south of the wreck site. The standout was the W.C. Kimball schooner, which sank in Lake Michigan in 1891. We were lucky enough to find an actual photograph of the W.C. Kimball, which gave us a rare opportunity to compare it to underwater photos Steve took when we dove the wreck 6 months prior. We know this would help with the identification process. As the weather finally started to warm up, Richardson, Wimmer, Cawthray decided to load up in the boat and head back out to the site for another dive. Spring is a perfect time to dive shipwrecks because it's when visibility is the best. Steve was able to take a few photos of the site during the first dive, but we needed video so we could cross-reference it with a photo of the Kimball. During the second dive, Wimmer took an underwater video camera with him with the intent of capturing footage of every angle of the wreck site. Richardson added 4 more crew members, ROV remote operated vehicle pilot Bryant Dort, Brent Tompkins, who served in support of the boat, maritime artist and diver Cal Cawthray, and his father Roger Cawthray. Steve was able to videotape the wreck from bow to stern. At this point, we were about 80% certain it was a W.C. Kimball. While Weimer continued his dive, Richardson and Cawthray remained in the boat, watched a 40-inch monitor that was broadcasting real-time video feed from the RV camera. I was looking for what I believed to be a smoking gun, said Cawthray, whose digital maritime artwork helped play a huge role in identifying the wreck. I looked at photographs of the W.C. Kimball and was able to discern certain details that were very rare of ships of that time period. If we could find the running lights on the wreck, then I would know with certainty we had found the Kimball. Cawthray said he scoured both sources of footage and Wimmer shot as well the ROV material and found what he was hoping for. There it was. The running lights were there, which allowed Ross to positively identify the wreck as the final resting place of the W.C. Kimball. The W.C. Kimball was built and launched from Manitowoc, Wisconsin in 1888. The schooner eventually operated out of Northport, Michigan, often sailed along the coastline of Lake Michigan to Chicago and back, delivering salt, roofing shingles, potatoes of various ports of call. Richardson says on the evening of May 7th, 1891, the Kimball cleared the pierhead at Manistee and headed north towards her home in Northport. Early in the morning of May 8th, a northwestern gale arose and pummeled northern Lake Michigan. Kimball foundered and vanished. A few days later, a vessel passed through the wreckage field off Point Bestie, just north of Frankfurt. Shingles were spotted floating off North Manitoba Island, began washing up at Cathead Point, the tip of the Leelanau Peninsula. Later this summer, 2 personal items washed ashore near Leeland, Michigan. Charles Kelp's cap, Carl Anderson's trunk with letters inside, and a small blue hatch cover. The beaches between Frankfurt and Northport were searched regularly, but the bodies of the Kimball tragedy were never recovered. 5 months after making the identification, Richardson, Whitmer, and Cawthray gathered at North Point and met with William G. Thomas, whose great uncle was Charles Kell, one of the sailors who lost his life aboard the Kimball. They found my uncle's cap floating in the lake, but that was all, said Thomas, 93, who was a former physician in Northport. I've always been interested to know more about it because it is the family history. It's a great thing to know, finally, where he is. Thomas had yet to see any photos or videos of the site. That's when Cal Cothright decided to pull up some of the images of his phone and show him. That's amazing, Thomas said, as he became the first member of his family to set eyes on Charles Cale's final resting place. You got me excited now, and I have high blood pressure. At the moment the family closure, it took 127 years to unfold. Thomas had to live 93 of those 127 years to become the beneficiary. It's terrific they found it, said Thomas. It's the thrill of the day. Richardson said even though he's positively identified it, he never plans to return to W.C. Kimball site again. Those top masts were way too delicate in grappling the wreck, even though we used as little of an intrusive process as possible. There's still a chance it could cause damage. That thing will continue to be preserved in 39-degree water for hopefully another 100 years. Those are some great.
Put a grapple down trying to relocate it, you got a good chance of knocking down the mast.
Yeah. Well, and the tough thing is that with the scope you'd have to have even for an anchor, you're very likely you could get tangled up in that. I mean, look at that, this artist representation from Cal that we have up right now. I mean, it's amazing that they didn't knock them down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that would be a nice wreck for a submarine visit.
Yeah.
A little personal sub.
Some of those personals.
Yeah, that would be the way to do this. This is not one where I think you want to moor it and dive out to. Well, you said 300 feet?
Yep.
Yeah, it's outside a recreational range for most of us. You know, your tech divers could get down there. Beautiful shot of it.
Very, very good pictures too. Very good pictures.
So that's what they were seeing on the where they're coming up. You know, here's a side scan of it. Beautiful sonar image.
Mm-hmm. When you like to be out there mowing the lawn and all of a sudden something jumps up like that in relatively shallow water.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you don't look, you don't find, but it doesn't sound like he was really looking for that one.
No, but like you said, happens, and they went out to just do some work with the side scan, turned it on, and bingo.
Yeah. What a nice find. So the condition it's in, it must have just, I mean, they didn't ever say what they thought it was? Was it a storm?
They didn't see any kind of damage to it. Almost looked like it got swamped and just settled in.
Yeah. Nice advertisement on the website we're looking at. And then this last one, well, we'll have a little short run this week. This is a mammoth tusk found off the Central Coast. I didn't get a chance to watch the video. Is there anything we should be looking for, Mac?
No, but it's awful big and very, very old.
Look at that video wall that they have in that vessel. Had quite a few cameras.
Yeah.
So they're interviewing someone. That's a pretty big tusk.
If we'd have been down on the Cooper River and saw that, would you have brought it up?
You bet. I
think so too.
I'd have brought it up. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, here's since we're on it, here's that perfectly preserved wreck. This one's from November 2016. Some nice video shots there. Oh. Well, that should do it this week for Scuba News. I didn't have a whole bunch lined up, trying to get back into the swing of things. Boy, I seem all out of sorts. Has anybody been getting any diving in? I think we're at that time of the year where you want to, but you don't.
Now, we had the club meeting, and that was on Tuesday. And there was a couple of, let's see what it was. They had an ice diving clinic at Bridgman Pool a couple of weeks ago. And then they followed that up with going up north and actually got a good ice dive in. So that group did get some, but that was not part of the Muddies. They talked about SAS being bought out, basically. And that's going to be quite interesting. They're going to redo some of the SAS area work and build a swimming pool. They're interested in both swimming and diving. That means you'll have pool parties coming up during the winter. And you'd be able to do a free dive, ice dive mock-up in a pool. Very good environment. Get used to the equipment, line pools, and then proceed up north, which is a really, really good, a nice thing. You know, get a good current training dive in before you go into the ice.
Yeah. I'd like to understand the economics of a dive shop owning its own pool. I mean, there's enough shops that do it that there must be some sort of tangible benefit, but it seems like an awful large expense. I wonder if they do other activities like swimming classes and, swim teams to help pay for it.
I would imagine they would, and if nothing else, swimming.
Yeah.
But I mean, being able to check out gear right there when you buy it.
Oh yeah.
That'd be a good plus.
It would be
a selling feature.
Yeah.
Not to mention if it's the middle of the winter getting ready for trips. You got to remember, though, they are really huge on trips.
Yeah. Well, you've got Rick, who's just awesome at his contacts and some of the trips that he hosts.
And the company that bought him out is really big in doing the same thing. That's why they bought him out, to use his expertise.
Well, you've got his expertise, and instead of him having to fill a trip just from his shop, all the shops in that company can fill it. So I bet you he could just about do his, a couple of his favorite trips almost all year round. He just live in truck.
Yeah. I was going to say Truck Lagoon because he loves that place.
Yeah. That's definitely on my bucket list to go and do that.
I win my couple of million. That's one of mine too.
Yep. So, yeah, I'm thinking I might avoid any Ukraine diving in the moment.
Well, at the moment, but you might be able to go find some good military hardware in the rivers and stuff, in a couple of months now.
Yeah.
The recovery could be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Right about now, though, I don't think I'd do that.
No, I'm not the brave one for stuff like that. How'd the meeting go? I knew I wasn't going to be able to make it, but.
Well, we had a lot of people collect on their dues. I still have your T-shirts.
Yep, and I got to get.
When you're there one day, we'll get together on that.
Yeah.
There was a couple more shows that are going to be on. Dive shows, Our World Underwater. They keep saying, yeah, we're going to try something, but don't send your money in yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Our World Underwater.
Oh, really?
No, don't send your money in.
Okay.
We did go through a bunch of them from overseas, like we did on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. And if you're traveling, there's some awesome opportunities overseas to try out a lot of new type of gear and a lot of trips. Let's see, locally, key item there is the St. Joe River is in Niles, overflowing the banks very fast. The pipe we normally go on to get out.
Yep.
There is no pipe. It's totally covered over up to the embankment. So you're probably not going to be diving that anytime soon. But if the warm water or the warm weather keeps up, we hope to be in the water next month at the minimum.
Yeah, a few weeks ago.
That's rapidly approaching.
When we had that rain, I know that Hickory Creek there crossing Cleveland was well over the banks.
Yep.
Eric in the chat room was saying that COVID proved the need for the pool. So I guess that makes sense.
That's for sure.
If you have your own pool, you're not sitting there asking somebody else, may I?
Yep. We have Wolf's open house this weekend.
Oh, okay.
I think Pier 33 also has an open house. And at both of them, they'll have Coast Guard presence for the new rules and regulations, some of the flare equipment that's got to be done a different way, and fire extinguishers. And since I'm not a boater, I'm not really sure what those are.
Okay.
So there's an opportunity to get out and see stuff this weekend, at least locally.
Well, do you have a dive safety story for the week?
I don't really have a dive safety story, but I'll just re-emphasize what I always do. It's called 5 Simple Steps for Diving, or diving safety. Key item is plan the dive the plan. Sounds pretty simple. Second one is dive within your limits. Especially after a long layoff, take it slow, build up your endurance and your abilities again. Most of us have not been doing their physical activities, and you're just not going to hack some of the currents nowadays. Third item is liquid diving activities. The other one, what was common was, if you look at your gauges, you don't run out of air, and you really don't. Number 4, we do this, verify the safety of your equipment before you get into the water, and immediately when you get in. Remember, we do our air checks against our gauge. We make sure the regulators are working, our mask is on before you get into the water. We check to make sure the BC will inflate, and we also make sure the dump valves work. Those simple tasks right there will minimize people jumping. And the last is make sure you're ready to dive. When in doubt, you don't. If your physical activities have been limited and the environment doesn't look really conducive to your safety, don't dive. And the other item that we always talk about at the end of it, think safe, stay safe. Key item, thinking.
Yes. So how about upcoming dives? Anybody got any plans?
Well, I'm going to be diving, hopefully, April the 2nd. The weather, surface-wise, should be fine. I'll probably go back out the pop where we got a nice sandy bottom and break out the gear.
There
You're
you
going to have
go.
to have me a tender, though, or a babysitter. My wife says, you got to have somebody out there with you, no more solo stuff.
Yeah.
Which, again, is not a bad idea. It's nice to have a bubble watcher.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that just kind of goes to show that this time of year, we need to start getting gear ready. It's almost too late. In March already. Gosh, where's the time gone?
I've lost you completely.
Oh, you're not hearing me? How about now?
No, no, I can't. You're back.
I'm back, huh? It was just slow internet. You could see it kind of slowing down.
Oh, one of your satellites again?
I don't know if it was my end or your end or whatever, but because I could hear you, you just weren't hearing me. Oh, you got anything you want to plug before we get on out of here? We kind of went through this one pretty quick. I'll have to have some more stuff lined
One
up.
of the other items that one item we did bring up, or Jim did especially, is they're getting lots of new gear in, and it doesn't have prices on it. And every week they get an update on what the prices are.
Really? What? So you get
Yes.
new gear in.
He's getting gear in, but the prices are not attached. You have to go back and check to see what the manifest says it is. So I don't know how you buy it if the price keeps changing like that. So if you buy something now, you know what you paid for it, but everything is just ramping up.
Yeah.
So he said, right now is the time to get your old gear in, get it serviced.
That's a good point.
And he said he's got a tremendous amount of not really old gear, but it's not pristine new. He said, but this is where you're going to make your deals at.
Yeah.
Prices are really good to buy the used gear.
Yeah, if you are looking for anything, waiting is not your friend if you've got the money. I wouldn't go into debt for it. But
yeah,
industry in the U.S. will have at least a 10% cost increase being passed on. And that's a minimum.
Yeah, an easy. Yep, yeah. I would definitely say that.
And I know that from the meetings I'm in, the decisions I have to make. It's you're going to see about at least 10%. Yeah, I got to think about what I even can legally say because I see stuff from the other side, and yeah, we're going to see some pretty nasty inflation coming up.
Well,
and that was before Ukraine.
And the shipping itself, though, for gas, right off the bat, you're going to have an increase in your cost.
Well,
it costs a lot more to get the product to the store.
Well, the problem we're having is raw material. Is that when the pandemic started, anybody who was close to shutting down a plant just said, "Now's my time," and they shut it down. So you removed capacity from the market and want it. But if I can't make it, you can't get it. And that's what it's coming down to. So, and that's probably why nobody's printing a list. So it's interesting. You order it and then whatever it shows up is what you paid. That is kind of crazy, especially for when you retail. So.
Sign of the times.
It is.
It just aggravates me as the interest rates on credit cards keep going up, but the interest on the money you have in their bank keeps going down. If it can get any freaking lower.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to get any more money from them.
Well, the banks are making pretty good on that.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a delta, but a lot of banks are borderline insolvent. Oh, but that's our other podcast. So are you ready for that time of the show?
Yes, I am ready for that time of show.
Okay. So I don't really have anything good lined up, but we'll see. So after Sunday church, a priest would hand each of us an orange and a big cookie. A little girl once lied and took 2 orange, but the priest told her she mustn't lie because God is watching. Then the girl took 2 cookies and lied about it. When asked why she had done that, she said because she thought God was only watching the oranges. Asked him, "All right, Mr. Very Rich Clay, what's your second wish?"
That would frost you, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Let me see. Do I dare do one more?
That's good.
So, here's one more. This one's so bad that this has got to be it. I was once in a library when a man walked in and was asking for a ham and cheese. The librarian politely told him that he was in a library. The man first apologized and then whispered to the librarian, "Can I please have a ham and cheese?" No.
The first one was good.
The first one was good. Well, on that note, go out there and get wet.
And think safe, stay safe. Bad. Librarians are not going to like you.
No, I'm not popular with librarians. I'm thinking. Yep. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the stream to catch up on YouTube so I can end it. There we go. End. Yep. End. Ta-da.